Hello again. The Practical Animal Channel is dedicated to the public understanding of conservation. It is for zookeepers and field workers who are just starting out in their career. It aims to give you the career hacks that may just give you the edge you need to get that dream animal job ahead of the pack. Each week I interview conservation leaders from all over the world. Today's guest is a conservation leader speaking on the plight of the grizzly bear in the Yellowstone ecosystem. Dr. STACY Davidson is veterinarian and animal curator at the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center in Montana, USA. The Red Data Book lists grizzly bears as threatened. There are 60,000 grizzlies in North America and 1,000 in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. According to scientists, grizzlies first appeared in the fossil record 1.3 million years ago. Stacey, what's your best grizzly bear fact?
Although they are an apex predator, most of their diet is vegetation, so plants, leaves, roots.
Stacey, why are grizzly bears important?
They are omnivorous, so they eat both plants and animals. So they have a very diverse impact on the environment. As far as being carnivores, they're one of the top predators. So they are going to help keep elk, moose, and deer populations in check. And this is important because if these populations are too large, they will overgraze. And that can lead to destruction, especially waterways. So the plants are really important into maintaining curvy waterways that slow the water down. The plants around the water are an area so they help decrease erosion, flooding, increase water absorption into the soil, and also serve as a home for many other critters. Also, people are used to seeing the grizzly bears feeding on the salmon. So the carcasses of those fish that are left behind turn into nutrients that, are good for forestation and the environment. And then on the omnivore side, they eat plants and seeds. So they're spreading these seeds across, helping with forestation. And then they also are massive diggers. So that's what those huge claws are for on their front legs. And that's what that large hump is on their back. That is actually muscle. So they go around foraging and digging up the dirt. And this increases aeration in the soil and makes it a prime environment for new plant growth. Other things are that they are scavengers. So if they come across a carcass, they're going to feed on that. And that helps reduce the transmission of diseases. And they also help out other animals. So when a bear feeds on a carcass and is done, then other animals like raccoons, coyotes, wolves can come and feed on that. So they can kind of serve as an indicator for how other species are doing in that environment.
Please, can you describe grizzly bear conservation in Montana today, Stacey? Who are the stakeholders and what are the issues, please?
Yeah, that's a heavy question. But, I think you could break it down into any number of ways, but I think you have the federal government. Grizzly bears are protected in the lower 48 states under the Endangered Species Act. So you have federal government, you have state government, you have local governments, and they all have part in grizzly bear conservation, through the park services, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, federal biologists, state biologists, and it just goes kind of down from there too, and spreads. You have conservationists, tribes, nonprofit organizations, zoos, sanctuaries, biologists, and then you have your landowners, and people who live in Montana and live with these bears, and you have visitors and people that are coming to recreate here. So many different levels, and you also have the interagency grizzly bear committee, which has 4 states: Idaho, Washington, Montana, and Wyoming. So they come together and help with this conservation. I think that a big issue with grizzly bears is because their conservation story is a real success. Their numbers were so down, and they almost, to a few hundred. And so now their numbers are increasing because of all the work that has been done by all of these people. So I think a big issue now is, who's in charge and what should that look like? The federal government obviously has a big stake in it, and with the Endangered Species Act, and then there's people that are here in the state, and they want input, and they want to control it. So I think there are many different agendas. You have, your ranchers, your hunters, your recreators, your tourism. All these people have stake in grizzly bear conservation, and not all of their goals align. So I think that the big thing is, who and how do we decide controls and manages grizzly bear conservation?
If I was to be there on the ground, Stacey, talking to somebody about grizzly conservation, would their mindset be on the grizzly population in the state where we were, or would it be dependent upon the ecosystem where we were standing, or would it be dependent on the federal national view?
Yeah, I think that is a big part of, grizzly bear conservation, is looking what is important to the person you're talking to about grizzly bear conservation. On the federal level, they're going to be looking at, multi-state, broader issues. On a state level, there may be a large financial concern, with tourism and that sort of thing. On a person level who lives in Montana, they might be concerned about their land and their ranch and their animals and their livelihood. So I think that is one thing that you have to think about, again, when we're talking about grizzly bear conservation, and we're talking about these issues and the different aspects of it, is kind of knowing where this person is coming from, and being able to communicate, what are the important reasons we need grizzly bears, and what are your concerns, and how can we address those and move forward in a positive way?
Stacey, what jobs are there with grizzly bears?
Biologists, bear managers, jobs in education, nonprofits, zoos, sanctuaries, like myself on the veterinary side, or the veterinary technician side, and zookeepers.
What questions addressing grizzly bear conservation would you like to see answered as the 21st century comes to a close?
as their population grows and our population grows, we're going to be interacting with each other. What does that look like? How do we live with grizzly bears in our backyards?
Stacey, what does your job involve, please?
So I am the veterinarian and animal curator at the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center. So I am involved in the medical care for our grizzly bears and other animals. An exciting thing that has happened since I've been here is obviously to work on a grizzly bear, they have to be sedated. So the process, we sometimes had to use was to dart the bears. And in that process, it releases adrenaline, so they are excited, and then the drugs don't work as well. And there's issues with the darts deploying and all sorts of things. And so there's a level of stress there for everyone and the keepers and the bears. But I was involved in working along with our staff to train the bears to present their side for hand injections. So now the bear will come up to the mesh and he can give an injection, and the bear is sedated, within 4 to 5 minutes. So that's a really cool thing that has happened, as well as other training, putting their paws on the mesh so I can examine their claws and their feet, and opening their mouths so I can look at their teeth. And bears are very smart and curious creatures, and they all have their unique personalities. And then, as animal curator, I do a lot of staff management, and I think a big part of taking care of our animals is taking care of the people who take care of our animals as well. And our mission is to be able to, educate and allow people to observe these animals so that they can develop an appreciation. And also a big thing that we focus on, because we are in this area, is making sure that people understand how to be bear safe and how to recreate and how to interact in a safe way for the bears and for people. So we do a lot of education and things like bear spray demonstrations. So teaching people about bear spray, demonstrating how to use it, when to use it. The interagency Grizzly Bear Committee, we do container testing with them. So our bears right now are the only bears who do this, and people develop certain coolers or containers, and they're brought to the center, and our bears have a certain time that they interact with these, and there's standards for if how far they got into the container, what size hole is in it, are they able to get into this container or not? And if they don't, then that product is certified as bear resistant. So that's a huge thing, because we do say a fed bear is a dead bear, because they remember where food is. So a big part of being in bear country is making sure that they're not associating humans with easy food. So I think that's been a huge part of bear conservation. And we like to be able to be a part of this and to let people see this so that they understand, the amount of work and thought and everything that goes into it to make sure that, people are safe and bears are safe as well. We do a keeper kid program where kids are allowed to come into our bear habitat, just like our keepers, and they hide food under the rocks and under the logs and bury it, so that when our bears come out, they are exhibiting natural behaviors of foraging, digging things up, looking for these food rewards. So even very young people learning about bears and being able to get hands-on interaction with being like a bear keeper. And so that's our real goal. And I just see every day how amazing it is for people to see these animals close up and see their different personalities and their different interactions and how they move. And it's just really exciting and amazing. And it just never fails that people just love to see grizzly bears.
Stacey, what are good questions that a candidate for an internship or even a job at your facility can ask at interview?
Good questions are ones that kind of bring out people's passion and interest, asking about the animals and why we do the things that we do, doing a little bit of research about the facility, on the website and saying, oh, I see that you do this container testing with your bears. That's very cool. Tell me about that. Or what do you think is important about grizzly bear management?
Stacey, apart from a 6-year veterinary degree, what skills and personal qualities does a person need to do your job as curator of the facility?
I think a lot of times people who love animals say, I want to do this because I love animals and I don't like people. Unfortunately, a lot of times people come with animals. It's just really important to have that passion, have a drive, and a tenacity. You just never know what opportunities are out there if you are open to it. People skills and talking to people and working with people, both as a veterinarian, a small animal practitioner, and as animal curator, that's still really important. You can teach people skills like working with bears and cleaning the bear dens and taking care of the bears, but you can't teach people skills. You may love animals more than people, but most likely you're still going to have to deal with a lot of people.
Stacey, what clothing should somebody coming to your facility for an internship or job interview wear?
It tends to be pretty casual because a lot of times we are in there, doing the work. So definitely t-shirts, sweatshirts, khakis. When people come to work for me, even in our summer interns, I say, bring warm clothes because it can still be cold, and clothes where you are not afraid to get them dirty. Definitely important are good shoes that are going to keep your feet dry because you're going to be in there doing lots of hosing. And in the winter, it's a completely different story. I try to prepare people a lot and say, our winters are, extreme winters. And some people say, well, I lived here or there. And so I kind of know winters. I'm like, you don't know West Yellowstone winters. For an interview, hopefully you are having clean clothes. But recently I did have to go to my parent teacher conference right after work. So I said, I am so sorry. I have been working in the bear den all day. And my daughter's teacher said, don't ever apologize for hard work. So if you ever do have to go somewhere and you're not quite dressed appropriately because of hard work, just remember, don't apologize for hard work.
Stacey, where do our knowledge gaps lie regarding grizzly management?
I think that one question is going to be, up until now, our grizzly bear populations have kind of been pushed into these higher elevations where there's not as many people. But I think as the population recovers and these bears spread out more and they are coming down to these lower elevation areas with more people, I think there's going to be questions about, how does that change the bear, and how does the bear adapt to that? And maybe that bear doesn't behave the same as a bear who is living up in the mountains.
Can you suggest a Grizzly project for students, please?
To learn how to be bear safe. And there's lots of resources out there. There's the Wildlife Restoration Foundation. They have a good information and a good program, I Am Bear Safe. So I think just learning what it takes to be bear safe. Like if you live in an area where there's bears and you have chickens, you have electric fencing, you have that works, you same with beehives, proper containers, garbage cans, not feeding your dogs outside, not leaving food behind, and then if you are visiting or going to areas where there are bears, making sure that you have the proper equipment to be in those areas and be able to be safe and keep bears safe. One of our bears came to us for the July weekend. It was the time when COVID was here. So lots of people were coming out here and camping and maybe just didn't have the knowledge about what they needed to do to be bear safe. Like, what is a safe way that any person can, carry this bear spray to be able to, protect them. And there was a lot of research and science that went into that. We're still experiencing the effects of the bottleneck from 60 years ago genetically. There's still a lot of issues with genetic diversity and slow reproduction rate. So even though we have made so much progress, and it's an amazing story, we still need to remember to protect these guys.
Stacey, you are the veterinarian and animal curator at the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center in West Yellowstone, Montana, USA. Thank you very much for being on the Practical Animal Channel, Stacey Davidson.
Thank you so much for having me.